Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading, and then we examine a single relevant question based on the passage and what it points us to. Today I'm joined by Sharon Schwartz, and our reading is Psalm 8. So let me read that text to you. It says, O Lord, our Lord, your majestic name fills the earth. Your glory is higher than the heavens. You have taught children and infants to tell of your strength, silencing your enemies and all who oppose it. When I look at the night sky and see the work of your fingers, the moon, the stars you set in place, what are mere mortals that you should think about them, human beings that you should care for them? Yet you made them only a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You gave them charge of everything you made, putting all things under their authority, the flocks and the herds, and all the wild animals, the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea, and everything that swims the ocean currents. O Lord, our Lord, your majestic name fills the earth. So this psalm gives these declarations of the word, the original language it uses. We would say Yahweh. That's not really how you pronounce it, but that's how we say it. We put some vowels in there so we can say it a little better. It's a hymn of praise, and so he's talking about God's special role, or Yahweh's special role, for humanity in creation. So God created it all, but he gave man a special place. He begins by proclaiming God's glory. Then he examines this remarkable work that God has done. But he seems to be amazed by the fact that God has allowed humans to take part in this thing that he has created. He doesn't have to. I think that's kind of the whole concept of why he's writing it. And then he praises God for glorifying and placing humanity above the rest of creation. So if you go back to Genesis 1, you find that we're given dominion over the things that God creates, or Genesis 3. And so there are two Hebrew words here used. One is we pronounce Yahweh, so that's God's personal covenant name. And then the second Hebrew word is Adon, or Adon, so it conveys master. So this statement declares that Yahweh is our master, he's our Lord, he's the ruler over the person writing this psalm, which is attributed to David, and God's people. So in all the earth, Yahweh is this personal God of Israel, and his name is proclaimed that way. And so but then in verses 6 through 8, he expounds on man's special role or the special role God has given humanity. Not only does he pay special attention to humanity, but he gives humanity this elevated position. He describes it as just below God. That's how he says it. So Genesis 1:28 says we're put in charge of God's creation. And most likely he's recalling that passage from Genesis chapter 1 when he's writing this. So when we're given positions, so you have a position at our Bertie campus. When we're given positions, there are certain responsibilities that come with that. So the question I want to talk about today is, why are our responsibilities, having been placed in charge of the earth and things placed under our authority, what kind of responsibilities do we have?
I've thought about this, and obviously to care and protect. And I'm good with analogies. It would be like if my grandmother or great-grandmother had spent hours making a quilt, and it was passed down to my grandmother and then my mom and then given to me. That is not a quilt I would take out and lay on the street for kids to watch a parade. It would be protected and cherished. It would be, I remember its purpose, but it's not a $19.99 Amazon quilt.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how we need to not be careless with our environment. I think we need to be mindful that this is God's. He's just put us in charge of it. And, if you borrow something, it seems like we take a little more care of it than maybe we would.
Some people do.
Some people do. I think responsible people
Yeah, I
do.
would agree with that.
So as a responsible Christian, I think we have to protect what we've been put in charge of. Now, I think the thing is, do you disagree with Hutton? I think animals, as much as I love them, are still animals. They were put here for a purpose. And I think one doesn't necessarily contradict the other.
Mm-hmm. You mean if you take an animal's life?
If you take an animal's life. This is the argument I hear, from vegans and things, that you're hurting God's creation. Every time I mow the grass, I'm hurting God's creation, but they're here for a purpose.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's even in the animal kingdom, there's a natural order, that we see where that's concerned. God, for example, created lions
Right.
to eat meat.
Right.
And so there are other creatures in the kingdom, animal kingdom, that those lions are instinctively
right.
intended to go after. That becomes the challenge then becomes, okay, what is responsible and what is cruel or what is irresponsible, and it's like, I haven't, you're an animal lover. I wouldn't say that I am. I have
really?
a dog. No, I love my dog, but I didn't have a dog until 3 years ago now. But I wouldn't want one if I wasn't going to be responsible for it, if I wasn't going to take care of it. If you're not going to be responsible for it, you shouldn't do it.
No. Sort of like being a parent.
Exactly. Yeah. If you can't be responsible as a parent,
just don't be.
Right. That's right. and I think there's a tension present because we don't always see things the same way. So that the parent thing is a good example. What you consider to be good parenting may look different than what I consider to be good parenting.
Right.
And certainly, and I have heard some people say offhandedly, I'm a bad parent, but they only mean about a specific instance. They're not typically talking. Most people who are parents think they're good parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they don't think about it at all.
They don't have a clue.
Yeah. Either they don't
know what
it.
They don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So there are varying opinions about what is a good parent and also what is a good steward of the things God has given us. But there should be some norms, right?
Yeah, I think there's some obvious.
Right. Like, so give me some what you think are obvious.
Well, I think leaving a dog chained on a 3-foot chain out in the middle of a blizzard is not responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I think leaving an animal locked up in your house for 2 weeks while you go on vacation is not responsible. I think if it's a difference in having a $7,000 surgery on a dog that's been hit by a car and feeding your children, the merciful thing is to put the dog to sleep. Those things to me are obvious. Now, if you can afford the $7,000 surgery, then that's a different story. But I mean, there is abuse. Dog fighting, organized dog fighting. I would hope there's not a sane human being would think that's okay. I don't even believe the people that do it believe it's okay. I think they just don't care.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like, and this is just an opinion, that there's enough God in all of us that wrong is wrong. There should be, unless you stifle it.
Or overcome by evil.
Yes, but you've had to stifle a lot until by the time you're overcome by evil. Those are things I think are sort of black and white. For instance, if you neglect your child and you beat them and you abuse them, I wouldn't say you're a great parent.
Mhm.
And I would think the world would think that.
Right. And they do. There
They
are
do.
some basic social norms,
There
even
are
though
some.
that bar is very, very low, unfortunately.
Well, and it's getting lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have personally been in some environments where social services was called, and that bar is extremely
Yeah.
low for where they will actually take action. What about things like trees, environment? What are our responsibilities?
Well,
Rivers, lakes.
my dad loved fishing. And this was back before environmentalist, But I remember once, I probably was 5 or 6, I opened a pack of nabs and threw the package in the water.
Mhm.
You'd have thought I killed the family pet.
Right.
I mean, my dad went insane, Don't you ever, And I think that we have to be respectful. I don't recycle. I'm terrible at it, but I think I should.
Right.
It's something I know I should do. I'm just too lazy to do it, and I'll admit that here in front of God and everybody. I think we have to be as careful as we can be with because it belongs to God. And I think if we got that in our core, that everything we did, now would God do this? Or would I do it if he was sitting here and watching me?
Being a good steward
of,
there are debates about, whether you should cut this many trees down or, whether certain vehicles should be made. And some of those things are above my pay grade.
Me too.
And for the reality is most of us are not making those decisions. We're not deciding whether a factory is developed here, or whether it's dumping its waste in this river, or most of those are typically not decisions that we're making. Throwing our trash out the window or in the water,
right?
Or decisions that we make. Recycling. I think last year maybe on the podcast I mentioned, and I try to do this every day, and sometimes I am challenged. So I tell you a time I was challenged recently. So every day when I walk my dog 3 times. Every time I walk, my goal is to pick up 1 piece of trash.
Oh.
And sometimes it's simple. So like this morning as we're recording, I picked up a piece of wire that it was a insulated wire. So they were using it for something electrical. It would have been snipped. It could have fallen out of somebody's trash. Somebody could have discarded. There's 1,000 ways. It was in the middle of the road. So I picked it up, and carried it to the trash can with my dog poop.
You're a poopy scooper.
I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was walking and I hadn't seen any trash. And I came around the corner. Actually, it was right next to Tyler and Alyssa's house. So I walk by their house every day. And there was a used tissue in the road.
Oh.
It's flu season.
I know.
Everybody's sick. I was like, no, Lord, I ain't picking that up. Because in my mind, I was thinking, I want to be a good steward, but I also don't want to be sick.
Right.
And that's nasty. So I walked on by. I didn't pick it up. I walked by that thing 6 times over 2 days. Finally, I said, all right, Lord, I'm going to pick it up. So far, I'm good. I didn't get sick.
God protected you especially.
But sometimes...
Isn't that funny that it stayed there for 6 days?
Yeah.
Or 2 days or whatever.
2 days, yeah. It was 2 days. But, we can justify and rationalize things. It's like returning a shopping cart to the corral. I'm in a hurry. Somebody else will get it. They pay somebody to do this.
Right.
And, we just roll it and hop in our car and leave. That has nothing to do with being a good steward of the earth or we're
being a good citizen.
It is a responsible thing.
Yeah.
But I think we can rationalize and justify so many things when it comes to not taking care of God's creation and being responsible. Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we continue our conversation around the Bible.